We often assume that more money means more happiness. It's a simple idea we learn early on. Work hard, get rich, and life will be great. But what if that's not true? Imagine a world where entire nations grow wealthier, year after year, with more technology, more comfort, and more stuff than ever before. Now, imagine that despite all this progress, people aren't getting any happier. This isn't a thought experiment. It's a real-world puzzle known as the Easterlin paradox. In the 1970s, economist Richard Easterlin uncovered a startling contradiction. Across decades, incomes in wealthy countries had skyrocketed, but people's reported happiness levels had barely budged. This finding sent shockwaves through economics and challenged our most basic assumptions about progress. If getting richer doesn't make us happier, then what is the point of all this economic growth? This paradox forces us to ask a profound question. What truly makes a society flourish? Let's travel back to the 1970s. Richard Easterlin was poring over post-war data from the United States and other developed nations. What he found was fascinating. Within any single country, at any given moment, wealthier individuals did report being happier than their poorer neighbors. That part makes sense, but when he zoomed out and looked at the trend over time, the picture changed dramatically. As the entire country got richer, the average national happiness score remained stubbornly flat. Take the United States, for example. Between the 1940s and the 1970s, its GDP per capita tripled. People had more cars, bigger houses, and better appliances. Yet, the percentage of Americans who described themselves as very happy stayed almost exactly the same. The same pattern appeared in other nations. This wasn't an argument against growth itself. Instead, Easterlin revealed an illusion we had all bought into. He suggested that our happiness depends less on how much we have in absolute terms, and more on how we stack up against everyone else. So, why does this happen? The answer lies deep within human psychology. We are social creatures, constantly measuring ourselves against others. Economists call this relative income theory. Our sense of well-being isn't determined by our salary in a vacuum, but by how it compares to our friends, our neighbors, or even our own past expectations. Think about it. When everyone around you gets a raise, your own raise doesn't feel as special. The goalposts have moved. What once seemed like a luxury now feels like the new normal. This phenomenon is known as hedonic adaptation, or the hedonic treadmill. We chase after things we believe will make us happy, and for a short time, they do. But soon, our expectations catch up, and we find ourselves back where we started, looking for the next thing. Economic growth is fantastic at giving us more to consume, but it's also incredibly effective at raising our standards, often faster than it raises our lasting satisfaction. The paradox isn't about our bank accounts, it's about our perception. To fully grasp this, we need to understand the historical context. Easterlin's discovery came at the height of a century obsessed with growth. After the devastation of World War II, the world was focused on rebuilding. Industrialization and technological breakthroughs fueled an era of unprecedented prosperity. Governments began using gross domestic product, or GDP, as the ultimate measure of a nation's success. The message was clear. Producing more and consuming more equaled a better society. Advertising hammered home the idea that abundance was the key to a fulfilling life. But by the 1970s, people started noticing the cracks in this perfect picture. Concerns about environmental damage, rising inequality, and social unrest began to surface. The relentless pursuit of growth had hidden costs. Easterlin's findings felt like a timely philosophical wake-up call. It suggested that growth without a sense of balance or deeper meaning might just be feeding our appetites without nourishing our souls. The paradox was no longer just an economic curiosity, it became a moral question about what human progress really means. Over the years, researchers have tested Easterlin's theory across dozens of countries, and the evidence is compelling. In developing nations, happiness does tend to rise with income, but only up to a point. Once basic needs like food, shelter, and safety are met, the connection weakens significantly. Look at Japan. From the 1950s to the 1990s, it experienced an economic miracle. Living standards went through the roof, but average happiness levels remained stagnant. We've seen similar stories unfold in South Korea and China. Incredible economic transformations without a corresponding boom in well-being. On the other hand, countries like Denmark and Costa Rica, which aren't the wealthiest in the world, consistently rank among the happiest. Why? Their high levels of well-being are driven by factors like social trust, strong communities, and greater equality, not just high incomes. The paradox isn't a glitch in the data. It's a fundamental flaw in our assumption that prosperity automatically translates into happiness. The secret to this plateau in happiness lies in our own brains. The human brain evolved for survival, not for constant bliss. It's wired to notice change, not stability. When something good happens, like getting a promotion, we get a brief surge of dopamine, that feel-good chemical, but our brains quickly return to their baseline level of happiness. This is the same mechanism that kept our ancestors alert to dangers in their environment. Today, it's what keeps us on the hedonic treadmill, always chasing the next new pleasure, only to find it loses its magic once we have it. Modern consumer culture is built on this very tendency. Advertising constantly creates new desires, and technology offers an endless stream of innovations. Each new smartphone or streaming service promises a better life, raising our expectations but rarely delivering a lasting increase in contentment. As Easterlin himself put it, "A rising tide lifts all boats, but not all spirits." Our happiness, it seems, has less to do with what we possess and more to do with our frame of reference. The paradox also shines a harsh light on the psychological poison of inequality. When the gap between the rich and the poor widens, feelings of relative deprivation can grow, even if nobody is getting poorer in absolute terms. A society with a rising average income but exploding inequality might actually see its overall happiness decline. Envy, anxiety, and distrust fester when people feel they're being left behind, constantly measuring themselves against standards that seem impossible to reach. Studies consistently show that countries with smaller income gaps report higher levels of well-being, even with more modest GDPs. Why? Because equality helps stabilize our expectations, while inequality sends them into overdrive. The Easterlin paradox isn't just about money, it's about the social distance between us. When wealth separates people faster than empathy can connect them, economic growth starts to feel hollow. For decades, governments saw economic growth as the ultimate solution to every social problem. Now, some are starting to think differently. They're looking beyond GDP to broader measures of well-being. Bhutan famously pioneered the concept of gross national happiness. The United Nations now publishes the World Happiness Report, which tracks factors like social support, freedom, health, and generosity. Even some major economies are starting to incorporate well-being metrics into their policymaking. But simply measuring happiness isn't enough to solve the paradox. The deeper challenge is cultural. How does a society shift its focus from simply having more to feeling like we have enough? Economics can diagnose the problem, but it's up to our culture to find the answer. The paradox of happiness is a moral challenge as much as it is an economic one. Ultimately, happiness is not a product you can buy. It's a delicate balance between what we desire and what we have. In poor societies, economic growth brings genuine hope because it lifts people out of hardship. But in affluent societies, relentless growth can just create more noise, multiplying our wants without satisfying our needs. The Easterlin paradox marks this crucial shift in civilization. It shows us that abundance without a clear purpose can lead to a sense of drift. Think of it like a river. When it stays within its banks, it nourishes the land. But when it floods, it can destroy the very ground it's supposed to support. The lesson isn't to abandon growth altogether, but to anchor it in things that truly matter: fairness, meaning, and a sense of shared community. A society that only measures its success in dollars and cents will forget about the quieter, more durable forms of wealth. Things like trust, leisure, friendship, and dignity. These are the currencies that never lose their value. The Easterlin paradox has endured for half a century because it points to a timeless truth. The pursuit of wealth is not the same as the pursuit of happiness. Once our basic needs are covered, our well-being depends far more on our connections with others, a sense of fairness, and a feeling of purpose. Economic growth can buy us comfort, but it can't buy contentment. It can build skyscrapers, but it can't build trust. In the end, the paradox is an invitation to redefine what we mean by progress. If more income no longer leads to more happiness, then maybe real progress is about learning when to stop striving and start living. When we remember that prosperity is just a tool, not the ultimate goal, the paradox is no longer a trap. It becomes a teacher. Thanks so much for watching. If you found this interesting, don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos that make you think. See you next time.